good morning or good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, to everybody for what should be a fascinating session. And it's on the subject of what can we do with chess clubs during the pandemic? How can we drum up some new ideas to keep our chess clubs going? And we've got some fascinating guests here. I just need to check, is Matthias here from ChessBase? Not yet. I'll keep an eye out if he's there, because that determines how long this session may be. It's conflicting evidence on various spreadsheets and listings how long this session should be. If Matthias does appear, it will be an hour and a half. If Matthias does not appear, it will be approximately 1 hour. So that's just to set the time for you, and it's always useful to know how long we're here for, how long you can put it with me and that sort of thing. We've got several speakers. I'm just going to go through them in turn, and we'll spread out the time equally. We'll let each person speak a little bit, and then when they're finished, we'll have a little bit of time for questions for each person. And roughly speaking, for about 20 minutes maximum for each person, and that should leave us a little bit of time for questions. Even if Matthias is here or not, it'll still stick to the same sort of formula. Doesn't matter if you haven't got 20 minutes of material, we can always ask more questions. That's absolutely fine. And we're looking forward to a very good session. So the first person is Sanjoy here. Sanjoy?
Yeah, hello.
Excellent, Sanjoy. Are you okay to go first?
Well, I can start, but I have to make a confession. I was aware I was a speaker on the session yesterday about anti-cheat. I only discovered I was a speaker for this session by looking at the program list, which is obviously not ideal.
So for everybody, this is interesting. This should be a very interesting session.
Having said that, and I don't want to take up people's valuable time if we'd rather sort of curtail my specialist participation, but it happens to be a topic that I am quite close to because of my involvement with my own club during the pandemic. So I'm happy to speak. But
oh yes, please do. Please
don't have 20 minutes of material.
No, that doesn't matter. In fact, if it was 10, 15, or even a few minutes, then that's absolutely fine, because we'll take lots and lots of questions and have a discussion. So sorry if the program put you rather on the spot, guest speakers.
It's all good. It's all good.
Probably when I go through the names, lots of people are going to get a surprise that they're actually on today, but this is all spontaneous, isn't it? It's spontaneous stuff, so it's fantastic. So Sanjoy, if you'd like to carry on from that, please.
So taking the brief as being sort of tools and ideas for clubs to be able to challenge these, to survive the challenge of the pandemic. So I said goodbye to all of my UK friends in March to move to Germany for a new role with Chess24. And I had anticipated that meant I would no longer be a member of the chess club in Liverpool, UK, that I'd been a member of for 10 years. But of course, then the pandemic hit and everything moved online. We had some people for whom that migration was much easier, much easier than for others. We had people that already played online, and they were initially the ones, let's say, a core group of 25% of the
sorry to interrupt. One moment, Sanjoy. If everyone else could put themselves just on mute, please, while Sanjoy's speaking, because we have got a little bit of background bird noise. And yeah, okay, thank you. And then we can just unmute when we're speaking. Sorry, Sanjoy, to interrupt.
Yeah, no worries at all. So in the first few months, the club, for example, had the opportunity to participate in national leagues, for NCL that it hadn't before. And as I say, there was this core group that was initially very willing and easily able to do that. And that, that continued for a number of months. But then approaching September, the question arose, how would the Merseyside League conduct its regular season? There was no knowledge of whether club premises would be available, because often they were in the hospitality industry. They were often, the upstairs room of a pub or whatever it may be. There was uncertainty about the safety consideration. Common with many clubs, I think that, chess has a demographic that would often be in the older parts of the population who and the vulnerability risk was greater. But also there was a technical challenge if we wanted to make that step to move activities online. The fact that many of the club members were not tech savvy. the way in which we tried to overcome this was by really doing a lot of outreach to try and make participation as full as possible, because these are still extremely keen chess players who, in many cases, felt as if their world was being taken away from them. So although I'm an employee of Chess24, I think I can speak freely about the fact that it was on Lee Chess that many of these tournaments were being conducted. And one of the things we tried to do was to create comprehensive documentation to help players to know how to go about becoming an online chess player, because things that you or I or people in this group might think of as very straightforward, such as how to start a game, how to challenge another player, how to create an account, would be very new for many of the people that we were talking about. And in many cases, we would through phone conversations just talk people through the processes. Also, sort of make sure that we, in general, had made an effort to keep in touch with people who had gone radio silent during the pandemic and understand, what their particular scenario was. And it is still in its early days. I think, the regular season only started in October for us, and I think we're going to have week 3 this Monday. But what has heartened me is that across all clubs, there has been a clear expansion from those that were just naturally very online savvy to the people that you had seen and heard nothing of for 6 months, who are now kind of being welcomed back in. I think the key is adaptability. At some point, we all hope that the over the board frequency of club nights and tournaments will continue again. But for our league, it may well be that clubs are having to join forces, to merge, to find kind of neutral venues where matches can be played. There are all kinds of onerous legal requirements that organisers must now understand and make easily communicable to others. And I think, as with most aspects of life, sort of clear, strong communication and leadership, I think, has to be at the core of this. I feel sad that many people have dropped out altogether because they feel that online chess isn't for them, and there are actually many reasons for that apart from convenience. There still is a fear amongst some players about playing online, and the fear that they will be either accused of cheating if they play well, or that their opponents are cheating because of the anecdotal stories they hear about the prevalence of cheating online as well. So I think that is another topic that has to be addressed very confidently and clearly to take on those concerns, address those, and even where we don't have all the answers, to be able to allow people to air their views and see what we can do to help them to feel that the online space is something that they can embrace. So maybe those are some thoughts that might kick off the discussion, and I apologize I couldn't prepare more thoroughly for this. Perhaps I would have been able to be a little bit more illuminating if I had, but hopefully that wasn't too off topic.
No, I thought that was very illuminating indeed, and I thank you very much for that. And again, I apologise that it seems people were rather surprised to find themselves on the programme for this particular event, but that's fine, because what you said was very, very good, and it certainly does start off the topic. And I'm just going to, I put it in the chat as well, but if you've got any questions, anybody, drop them into the chat, and I will be able to ask them after each person has finished speaking. We've got a question here from Alex Longson. Hello again, Alex. And Alex asks you, Sanjoy, the playing arena and, for instance, the team competition management seems to be the weakest area in Chess24, in the Chess24 stable. Is this an area you are looking to develop?
Yeah, I think it's an open secret that Chess24 are developing a new play zone. And in terms of tournament functionality, it falls into 2 categories. There are managed and unmanaged tournaments. The product development I'd like to move towards is to allow organizers to create their own tournaments self-sufficiently. Lee Chess does this very well through teams, and you create a team which is just an entity, and you can conduct a tournament within that entity. I think where Lee Chess doesn't quite go as far as people would like is in terms of tournament types, because if you play in their arenas, there are some quite idiosyncratic rules about how those things work. I think the tournament formats that we're all more familiar with in terms of Swiss tournaments, round robins, knockouts, etc., if it is possible to develop our product to be able to incorporate all of those tournament types in an unmanaged way. Of course, it's easier to do the managed tournaments that happen at a scheduled time and people can sign up to. But I'm working towards having our product be able to have unmanaged tournaments so that you or I or anyone can just create that tournament for a set group of players. We can choose whether it's open, we can choose whether it's closed, we choose the times of the rounds and just run it self-sufficiently. That's the ideal. But there are, of course, always competing priorities. So this is still some way down the road for us, but it's a case of watch this space.
Thank you for that. And it's very refreshing. I know you work for chess24.com, but chess.com, sorry, but you mentioned in your rivals as well, which I think is very open and very honest of you, and greatly appreciated, because that's something that I think the world lacks, in terms of comparison. Everyone sticks to their own facilities and things. John Blackburn, hello, Jonathan. Question for Sanjoy: do you think there is a big opportunity to expand local clubs via online-only chess players who we wouldn't normally reach? So it's trying to tap into this new market who wouldn't normally come out to the chess clubs, perhaps. And Jonathan says, I know my club hasn't advertised, and I'd be happy to do some work if it's been successful elsewhere. So it's tapping into a brand new audience, making the best use of these strange circumstances.
Yeah, not just a brand new audience, but also players that have migrated as well. Myself being one example, but we have a pool of players who are globally distributed who now can come back to the club. And of course, there are people who, we're fortunate. I used to live in a very large urban centre. I've moved to Hamburg, another very large urban centre. But for many people, the choice of thriving chess clubs around them in a over the board way, perhaps they didn't have as much, sort of luxury of choice previously. And now a club can have a, geographical based name, but be an online club and be open to anyone. And the last session that I was on was about the participation gap between men and women. This is again another opportunity to welcome people who have not traditionally been part of our club membership. So yeah, of course, it's a time to be creative. It's a time to reach out, and it's a time to grow our game, I think.
It's certainly a time like no other in living memory, that's for sure. And with all the disadvantages, which are very obvious with the world being in the state it's in, it's very refreshing. We certainly find at this conference, everyone's very positive, and everyone's finding brand new ways, brand new initiatives, and pooling resources and all this sort of thing. And I think it's wonderful to see people making the best of the strange world we find ourselves in, and not giving up, not running up the white flag and saying, let's just do something when everything's clear. But everyone's getting on with things, which I think is absolutely wonderful and really creative. Just a couple of questions here, Sanjoy, about the cheating aspect. Do you advise local clubs to fight against cheating and publish public statements or so? And how does your company support clubs in that point? And that's tied in with a question from Ginsho. Can you suggest 3 things that club members, arbiters, and others can do to kind of prevent cheating?
Yeah, and actually, there was a really interesting insight on this from David Cordova of Tornello on one of the sessions yesterday. I think he will, won't disagree with me if I say Tornello are relatively junior compared to, let's say, chess.com, chess24, Lee Chess, etc., and they're evolving very rapidly as a result. But their focus actually is very different to what we've seen previously in terms of anti-cheat, which is to try to be, let's say, more open in looking at why people choose to use, technical assistance, etc., and to create a community where people openly. The kind of analogy he used was about, other social issues and how a peer group can influence people in one direction or another. You know, if there is perceived to be prevalent cheating going on in any arena, then people almost give themselves a preemptive excuse that everyone's doing it, so why shouldn't I? But if you can try to educate people in advance, because sometimes it's that people don't choose to do it, realizing that it has such a stigma and is an absolute no-no. You know, I've heard of players, younger players, who think that they're just being clever and gaming the system, and they have a much more kind of they see themselves as being almost, you know, like a hacker, or, you know, quite creative and entrepreneurial almost. To try and educate people to realize that you know, the cost is that we lose faith, we lose a level playing field, and ultimately that means fewer tournaments that can't have prizes, you know, and it hurts everyone. And if you can try and educate people to try and voluntarily accept, for example, certain controls. I mean, this again is a sensitive area, but you know, there are things that we can do that makes it easier to police, you know, to police cheating. For example, use of cameras, use of on-client software that can capture, you know, screen capture, etc. We need to try to explain to people the pros for doing so, and take away some of their fears about Big Brother and data capture and how that data will be used. So that perhaps is another way. One final thing I would say is that there is a lot of emotivity in this subject, and on social media I see lots of accusations being thrown around, and I think this only hurts us all, because when someone that you know is accused of cheating, the most natural thing in the world is to take their side and to defend them. Equally, if you've played a game and you've lost online, it can be a natural extension to feel that there might have been sort of, you know, abnormal means afoot, etc. So one thing I would strongly advocate is for everyone just to be a little bit more responsible in the way that they communicate issues around cheating. There are processes for every tournament you will play in. Whether it's a local club, there will be a tournament organizer that you can privately speak to. There will be, you know, if it's, for example, a federation tournament, there will be due process for making a complaint. If it's an on-platform tournament, there is a process for triggering a suspicion. What we don't need to do is go online and tell 600 friends that this person was cheating against me when you don't know it for sure. Or even, you know, to use the other side of the coin, to say this person from my club was banned for cheating, and I know that they are an honest player, when you don't know it for sure.
I think that's a really, really important point. And I made the point on one of the panels yesterday that online cheating at chess is nothing new, but the numbers we're experiencing in terms of the accusations, and as I said, both sides of the coin, is the numbers are definitely new, because everyone's been forced to play online. But cheating at chess has been around since chess began in some way, shape or form, and certainly in online chess. And it's just the sheer numbers and managing that sort of thing. And people are desperate, people are bored because they're sitting at home all day long, and you tend to find winning a game of chess seems to mean a lot more to a lot of people, perhaps online now, even if it's just a 1-minute game or a 3-minute game. They're desperate to get the rating up, they want to feel good. You can understand in a way why people would resort to means foul just to improve their feeling about themselves, because it's such a strange place. I'm not condoning cheating in any way, shape or form, but you can see the other side. You can see why it would happen in some cases now, more than ever, I think, is the point there. That was fascinating. Thank you very much, Sanjoy. Even though you claim you're not prepared anything, you're like one of these chess players that I keep playing against. They say they never prepare, but then they turn out to be much better prepared than anybody else. And I'm sure that's the case. So thank you very much. There's some more questions coming in the chat, but we will sort of pool those questions later on, because they may well apply to all three speakers anyway. We'll get the three speakers in their spotlight, and then we'll reconvene for the questions a little bit later on. Can I just ask, is Matthias from ChessBase on the call yet? Can you just give me a shout if you are, please? I can't see you through scrolling. which is fine. We just need to know the sort of time schedule. It was unclear to me whether Matthias was going to be here or not, and he's not at the moment, but he appears. Someone shout up and let me know. So shout, "He's behind you," just like pantomime season in this country. But in the meantime, I think we're now going to turn to the great Lars and see what he has in store for us. You're very quiet there, Lars. We can't hear you very well.
I'm very sorry that...
That's it. We've got you. That's fine.
Yes?
Absolutely. Go for it, sir.
Okay, I'm very sorry that my birds interrupted the...
No, they're fine. They can apologize for themselves.
Yeah, they will apologize during my short presentation for themselves. So yes, I'm very happy to speak here. My name is Lars. I come from the German Chess Youth Association, and I had just a very small topic. It will be about an app for local clubs. I heard from this example 2 or 3 weeks ago in a presentation myself, and yeah, around this example I built a small presentation. I don't know, can I share my screen here with the
You should be
audience?
able to. I'll just make absolutely certain on my security. Yeah, if you try now, sir, that should definitely be okay.
Thank you very much. And I hope we will get some small presentation going.
I can definitely see the shared screen now. That's good.
That's awesome. Thank you. You will also maybe, if you want, you can use the link in the chat on menti.com and the code to take a little bit part in the presentation and do a little bit of interaction later on. So yeah, first a few words to me and myself. My name is Lars Drygajlo. I come from the German Chess Youth Association called DSJ, Deutsche Schachjugend, and I'm there for the public relations, together with an awesome team and awesome members whom I also spotted in the audience here. So welcome also to you from the German side. And well, the presentation is not really... Yeah, I'm playing chess since my childhood, and I never really won any championships. So I ended up in the voluntary work, as maybe a lot of you did too. So we are just now organizing chess and not taking part in competitions, but trying to make it able so that other people play. At first, a small plan, I wanted to talk about what can clubs do during this pandemic and how they can use digital formats to maybe increase member interaction and maybe get some new members. Then I wanted to show you the example of an app for a local club and what it can do, and a few chances and risks. And in the end, I have examples of what sports clubs or what associations use the app and how they use this. But at first, now you can go to the website menti.com and use the code here above. I will also post the code into the chat. And then you can answer a few questions so that I will get to know where you come from and what audience we actually have here. I will give you a few minutes. A few people already joined. I see here 100% already from the club participation. So where do you come from? Do you come from a local club, or do you represent an association, or are you just a private chess player?
On myself, sorry.
Yeah, you yourself, or just the audience is now using the...
Yeah, if you want to put that in the chat, folks, and we'll catch up with that. Just sort of where you're from.
No, they can use the presentation on menti.com and then type in the numbers.
Okay, yeah, great. Excellent.
I always lose the chat here. There's the chat. Okay. Choose more. I think you can only choose one, and it's not so important. It's just like to get a general overview. I think you can only choose one, so we get... Yeah, I see the numbers ticking. So yeah, most of you seem to come from a club, and this is also the target group, I think, for the app later. And yeah, this is no serious talk that I want to give. No, I do not want to sell anything. I just want to give a small input, a little idea what maybe clubs can do now. So okay, the numbers are still growing, but I think we get an overview that the most of you come from a chess club here, a little from a company and associations. That seems about fine. That's what I expected. So yeah, I skip to the next part. And what I would be interested in now, I ask you, where do you get your news from your local chess club? So if you think the chess club where you play your competitions and where you play your championships, where do you actually get the news from? So is it online via social medias? Is it via the homepage? Or where do you get it from? I think you can rate the little points. So if you strongly agree, or if you always use this platform as a news platform, then just click a high number. If you never use it, then just put a small number, and then we can get an overview here. Yeah, for me myself, I strongly put the WhatsApp group. Since the pandemic, somehow our local club started a WhatsApp group, and everything is just organized via this WhatsApp group. All Lichess tournaments and everything, and the whole life and community somehow started around this WhatsApp group. And yeah, the local club is now really flourishing in members, and new people are coming there, and people who played 10 or 15 years ago are starting to play again for us in our Lichess club. So the Bundesliga or the Quarantaine League on Lichess really boosted ourselves. And yeah, we see here the results are more into direct message and email and SMS stuff. So this is also a feature that I somehow expected, that the local clubs are still very within their community. They are their own bubble, and direct interaction and direct contacts are very important for the clubs. So it's not so important that you have a strong social media presence or a strong, very good website and newspaper articles. But it's more important that you have direct contact to the people, and then that you have your bubble within the club, because this is where you reach, your audience and the people who are actually playing for the club. So what can clubs now do in this pandemic? Of course, the first thing that you can do, just basic and very abstract, is keep the old members, the people that are already playing for your club. Just try to keep them. There you have to do some tournaments, you can do trainings online, you can do social gatherings. Connect yourselves on Discord, on Skype, do some gaming evenings, do whatever you like, whatever you did maybe before the pandemic, but just now do it everything online, at least as long as the clubs are closed. And yeah, these parts are to keep the old members, and of course you can try to acquire new members, especially now beginner trainings. I think there are a lot of topics now about Beth Harmon programs and Queen's Gambit. But the second point is more to reach outside of your chess bubble. And yeah, this is not so important for the talk now, but of course this is an idea. So how do we keep old members, and how do we maybe increase the interaction? There the idea is that the local club, for the local chess club, maybe also the bigger club that is surrounding the chess club. I don't know how the organization looks in different countries. In Germany, there are always a big sports club, and then the chess is like one part of the club. So maybe this club can use an app to somehow increase interaction, and this app should include, of course, news about the club. It should include the results part. It should include calendar, where the people can see what are the next dates, when do we meet again. It can send push notifications to the people, so it gets immediately onto the cell phone. And this is the main reason why we should use an app, because it immediately reaches the people, and everybody has its cell phone like lying next to him or herself, so the information really come into the hand of the people. The app can also be a tool for communication. I said before that the WhatsApp groups is something that the clubs use, but also the direct communication, email and everything. This could also everything be included into the app, like an internal chat function, an internal message system that just puts everything onto one platform. And it's maybe more organized and more structured than just WhatsApp groups or just email servers. Optional, of course, also social medias can be integrated into the app. Like you show that there's Facebook, there's Twitter, and you just have a platform that you can see everything on one place, and you don't have to be yourself on Twitter, on Facebook to get the information. So the app for the club would do this for you. And the goal would be for the app that it becomes a central platform of exchange or interaction for the club, so that all the news, everything is just going there. And I don't know if it's also a goal or like a vision. So if somebody wants to do something like an app, then this should be something that you use for, not that you use the app just in one part, just for communication, but you should really try to build like a central platform for the club. And yeah, the chances are, of course, of such an app, if you have an app for your club, that you keep the members up to date because of the push notifications, you keep them interacted. It increases interaction of the members because everybody has access to the app, everybody can download it. Maybe there are features in the app that every member can post some news or post questions or post something. So it just increases some interaction within the club, within the people that are already in your chess club. The risks are, of course, that there are costs. Such an app development usually costs a lot of money, but to that we come a little bit in the next presentation. And the risk is also that somebody starts the project and everybody, and the person who initiates the project cannot really finish it, and it becomes another forgotten project. Like, we know with a lot of projects and ideas that we have that we just stop caring about it, or there are not enough people who are standing behind it. And this is a very important part in realizing an app, that you have 2 or 3 people who really want this app and who really want to use this app, that there are people who stand behind it and who realize this. So yeah, this was the ideal version of the app, and what I think when I talk about this club app. And now, especially in Germany, and I don't know if this is very interesting for you, but I want to show 2 examples how how it can be realized in Germany and for German clubs. So there's the Deutscher Olympischer Sportbund, the head association for sports in Germany, and it offers a program for clubs, the so-called Vereins-App. And this is like a toolbox with a lot of features that you, as a club, you can just email them and ask them, hey, we want to design an app. And then you get consultation, development, and design, everything sponsored by the Deutscher Olympischer Sportbund. And they do all the work for you. You just choose the features that you want to include into your app, and they do everything for you. This whole thing has only the running costs of 40 euros per month. So it's also a relatively cheap solution for the local clubs. You just pay the running costs, and all the development costs and everything else is just covered by the head association. And it's used already by the Bayerische Sportjugend, the local federal sports association. It's used by Team Deutschland, the Olympic team of Germany. It uses also an app, and it's used by many more sports associations and local clubs that just, they let the DOSB design themselves an app, and that can use this. And another example is Kurabu. It's also a platform that offers this feature to create an app for clubs. They also do it for free for clubs that have less than 30 members. If you have more than 30 members, then it also has running costs of more than 18 euros per month. And also there you get the development, the consultation, and everything. And also you get the features of administration of members, so login, and many more technical features that you can look up yourself if you're very interested in this. I don't want to go into this and do this, and a sales product. But that was it about the app and the idea that local clubs can generate an app for themselves to maybe increase the member participation. And thank you very much for listening and for having the tweets in the background. I hope you all go to Twitter now and tweet.
Yeah, when we said people should tweet, you've taken it quite literally. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much, Lars. What we will do is we will come back to all the questions in the chat a little bit later on, because I said they will probably, in most cases, apply to all 3 panelists anyway. and I don't want to exclude one of the panelists from entering that discussion when they've not had the chance to speak. I mean, the answers to some of those may well be in the next part anyway, which I think probably makes sense. And we'll now move on to Ljubica. Did I pronounce that correctly?
It's Ljubica.
Ljubica. Sorry, thank you.
The string of consonants tends to throw a lot of people. It's
Ljubica. Is that right?
Lu for short is fine.
Oh, we don't like abbreviations, but if so, because I'm English, you know, we always get names wrong. So it's an education for me every time I come on a Zoom call. So I do apologise. But you're from the Kingston Chess Club, is that correct?
Yes, I'm chair of the Kingston Chess Club. For those of you who are scratching your heads and wondering, where is this Kingston? So Kingston upon Thames is a town which is in southwest London. Slight deviation for those of you who are curious still, Kingston is named after the King's Stone, where many hundreds of years ago, is where the kings of England used to get coronated. So there you go, it's good fun to go and look on Wikipedia later if it's of interest. But anyway, so yeah, I'm a member of Kingston Chess Club. We have approximately 30 active members. We also have people who've socially dropped in and we've been keeping in contact and that kind of thing. And generally, which I suspect is the case with many chess clubs up and down the country, we generally have older members, so sort of more middle-aged to older members at our club. And the pandemic has been quite interesting. I use interesting in quotes, because we've seen, and I'd be really keen to understand what other people sort of up and down the country and internationally as well have seen, but we kind of have observed two phases of appetite towards chess during this pandemic. So I think what I'll try and do, so again, sort of go through things, but I think what might perhaps be useful is to have a look at sort of what things we've tried out, how we tried to garner information, what challenges we've been facing, what opportunities we see, and what we're doing now. So we've kind of gone through this journey. This journey is continuously evolving. It's going to change a bit more, but maybe that might be helpful. I would love to hear what other people have been doing on this journey. So when this started, we were in an interesting position because obviously a lot of the cases were starting to grow in February, and we had to make a decision about what to do. And in the end, in February, we made the decision to pull out of all league chess, that we would not be meeting at our venue anymore, just because the situation was becoming unpredictable. We have a lot of older members, vulnerable members, that kind of thing. And it felt like the right thing to do was to just cease. Before the guidances came out, before anything came from the ECF, before anything came from the government, we just thought, actually, this is probably now the right thing to do. And again, this is something that will have been replicated up and down the country. So we were a bit ambitious. We tried to sort of run in, and we started doing things like social chat sessions. So we'd set up either on Zoom or on Google Meets to go off and just try and do chats and get people talking. We set up online tournaments. So this would be in things like League Chess or chess.com. We'd have the arena matches, even to the point where we'd had either friendly blitz tournaments, or we had, we'd contact local clubs and say, hey, do you fancy, having a few, we can have like a tournament to the death, and, whichever one of these clubs has the most number of wins, great. We had online seminars, so we managed to get some of those organised. So we had online chess lectures, we organised simultaneous, so forth. So the whole range of things we tried to gather. And there was some interest at the start. So when we were in March and April, we did get some interest. People were turning up to those. We also put out a questionnaire to try and understand what people's appetites were. So we did things such as, do you have a smartphone? I'm kind of hoping you've got a smartphone, laptop, all those. The questionnaire would have been hard to answer, but we had the questionnaire going out. Are you a member of our WhatsApp group? Do you want to play tournament chess? Do you want chess lectures? What things are interesting to you as a club member that you want to engage in? So we did that. And for those members who didn't have smartphones or laptops, our club secretary, Alan, was phoning people up and just walking them through that questionnaire and collecting their answers. So that's how we were sort of managing the don't have a smartphone, don't have a computer situation. So we did all of this stuff. And what was quite interesting coming from the questionnaire was there was a lot of interest around doing things such as online chess lectures, interest around doing simultaneouses, that kind of thing, seminars. That was the thing that most people who responded to the questionnaire were interested in. Interestingly, there was sort of like a tepid response towards doing online chess, which is understandable. They're not the same game. They're both fun. They're both different things. But much like you probably have the big debate versus instant coffee and say a filter coffee, you know, they are two different beverages. Online chess and over the board chess are two different games to some extent. The same rules, but different experiences. And that was something that was repeated when there was announcements of online league chess for the Surrey League and Thames Valley, which are the two chess leagues that we play in. And again, very little response interested in actually taking part in these. So that was quite an interesting and quite enlightening. And something that we observed as well is the interest, where there was a lot of interest to do the online participation with these various events that we were running. That interest waned over time, and we're not sure why. And I wonder if it's something along the lines of this sort of Zoom fatigue, online fatigue, where absolutely everything is now online. If you're working from home, all of your meetings are online. You attend a conference, it's online. You catch up with friends and family, it's online. And now everything is now online. And is it something that we're looking at is Zoom fatigue? So as a slight tangent, the role that I work, so my role in my industry, that's something that we're trying to work with, where normally we'd be going out to conferences, we'd be going to meetups and meeting people in person. Now everything is online, and you know, we are concerned about this sort of Zoom fatigue. Are people now sort of going, I'm overloaded, I don't want to do some more again? That's my speculation around that. So that was an interesting thing. And the other challenge as well, like the technology thing. So we look at the membership. So I know, you know, we've got at least one member and all he has is a phone. That's it. He's in his 80s. So he doesn't have, technologies or things like that. So how do we manage something like that? And again, even sort of other members may not have those technologies. We have a situation where I can think of one member who has a work laptop and they're very hesitant about using that for non-work purposes. So what do we do around that? So I've got some thoughts and something that we're looking to cover. And I, again, love to hear the feedback on that. But so the challenges around that. Another challenge as well to think about, and it's something that we've been thinking about very closely, is what about the venues? So we've got a present challenge now, and the present challenge now is how do we keep our members engaged? How do we provide something so that they're looking forward to coming back, and we don't lose that interest in chess that's been there prior to the pandemic. But what about venues? So again, I suspect a large number of chess clubs in the UK are playing in pub rooms, up and down the country. So what happens to those, what happens to those venues? And that's something we're thinking about, and we are in frequent contact with our venue to see, what can we do as a club to help support them, because that's an interesting thing to that is a concern. What happens when hopefully everything comes back to normal in around September of next year? So those are some another sort of challenges thinking around. So I think let's tackle communication. So some of the things we've been doing around that. So we have a WhatsApp group. So we always had one prior to, prior to this all happening. And that's how we've always sent news around. And certainly we've noticed the WhatsApp group is a lot more active now. And that's been a really great way to just send out information to everybody, let them know if we're running an event or something like that. We have as well, so again, sort of Alan, our club secretary, has been absolutely amazing at reaching out to people who don't have access to that group, or wouldn't normally be able to pick up emails, and he's been keeping in touch with them to see how they're doing. So that's been sort of really, really grateful to him for doing that. And we have emails as well. So emails go out. So we'll have update emails. So what the current state of play is, what we're planning to do. We had our AGM online. So again, we advertised the AGM, and advise the AGM and just keeping in contact with them around that and what came up in that. And then, any events and things that we do, we push those out by email. So those have been the main things. And then phone calls to those members who aren't necessarily going to have those access to those channels. So I guess, where are we now? So what are we doing now? We had all of this enthusiasm at the start and the interest kind of waned. So what are we doing now? So from a committee perspective, we have regular catch-ups every sort of 6 weeks or so, where we just try and get an update of what's happening. So how are various members, how is the sort of the landlord of our venue, what's going on there. We discuss ideas and things that we want to do and try out. So that's that's just keeping up to date if there's any changes we need to do. Another thing we do that actually works really, really well is we do regular on socials. So whilst the conversation undoubtedly will move into some kind of chess conversation, so what people have been up to, what books they've been reading, these social catch-ups aren't just grounded around chess. It's shooting the breeze, but it gives the opportunity to just keep in contact and talking to people. So those we hold monthly now, because what we've found is that seems to make sure we get a large number of people attending those. So maybe because we're doing something to try and sort of combat that Zoom fatigue, it feels like it's a bit more special. If you miss this month's edition, then you're going to have to wait another month, rather than taking for granted that it's going to be there all the time. And again, there is, I think, the first paid tier of Zoom, I think something like £18 a month. And Google, I don't know if they're still doing it, but Google also gave their tier. So you used to have like the free tier that you get if you've got a Google email account, and you've got Google for Business, where they had their sort of special meets package. So both of those are really worth considering, because you've got a dial-in number, and that dial-in number is the magic for those people who don't have a mobile phone, who don't have a tablet or a PC. So again, if you can let them know ahead of time, what the dial-in details are going to be, then you're offering a way for people who can't use an online presence to get in. And again, that's being used by some of our members so that they can keep in contact and and chew the fat, which has been really great. And something that I'm really keen to try out in the future as well is, can we do a chess lecture where you basically speak the moves over the channel? So it's going to be clunky and a bit messy, but if the only option you have is to dial in, at least you can have a chessboard in front of you and you can follow along. So at least you've got a mechanism with which you can follow along and see that conversation around that. And another thing that's been, which has been great and massively unexpected, but great fun, is for NCL. So we had a few members from Kingston Chess Club who effectively, John Foley has a Chess Plus teams, and he set up a Chess Plus Kingston team for us. So for, that was a really convenient, administration wise, for some of us to be able to play in league chess. So we had that challenge where not many people were interested, but like this, for those people who did want to play some league chess, this was a mechanism to allow us to do that. And something that John has done, and it's worked really, really well, and I think, please, do try it out because it's been great fun, is there would be a Zoom session running where everybody who wasn't playing would dial into that Zoom session. We'd watch the games together, we'd discuss them, do the kibitzing, that kind of thing. And that's worked really well. That's been great fun to be able to just sort of, watch those games as a group, and you've got something, some common thing bringing you together around that. So that's been great fun. And we'll be looking to reschedule now in the sort of what would have been the new season to start looking at doing more lectures and simuls, but not quite at the pace we were doing before. So again, to do that, something, make it feel special when we're doing them. And we're also looking at things like, hybrid chess. What would hybrid chess be? Is there some way where we can use technology? So for example, if two people want to meet in the pub garden at our venue, so it's within the restrictions placed, and maybe they bring their tablets with them so they can play against each other online whilst sat opposite each other, so not having to handle any pieces or have to worry about those things. So those are some of the things that we are quite keen to explore as well. So one thing I will mention at the end of this, and then I'll sort of finish here, is there have been some opportunities coming up, and this is something that we're quite keen to think about how we can explore these. And I think, again, these are opportunities relevant to all clubs, which is to start thinking about what do we do coming out of the pandemic. And I would love to know what the interest has been in online chess prior to the Queen's Gambit, because I have a feeling there must have been a marginal increase as people were looking at things to do with their newfound 3 hours. And I suspect a few people thought, chess, I've always wanted to give that a go. So that was something that we were looking at anyway. What can we do when we start coming out of this to try and capture that new interest? And then the Queen's Gambit came along and put a rocket behind that interest and sent it into the stratosphere. So I think there's a real piece around thinking about what can we do to collect that interest and nurture it and grow it, so that when we do come out the other side of this, we can take advantage of that. Because again, this is sort of like looking at it from a sort of a UK and England perspective. Chess has kind of been in decline, and now something's come along to try and grow that interest. So what can we do to take, to use that in a positive way and to continue nurturing that interest? So that's me pretty much. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much for that. That was really illuminating, and it's generated lots and lots of discussion in the chat here. That's why I was probably looked a bit distracted when you were talking. So I was trying to keep up with all of these questions and queries. But we've had 3 fascinating speakers here today, and we're just coming up to 1 o'clock already. So despite Sanjoy's initial feelings that we didn't have enough material to run for an hour, we've certainly had more than that. And we're just going to answer 1 or 2 of the questions in here, and then we can open it up again for the panelists to come on board, and maybe people would unmute themselves to ask questions directly. That would be very nice. But a lot of the general gist of the chat questions, there's so much chatty I can't get through it all, is that the big gap between children who are very savvy with technology, as we've already said. I think all 3 of you mentioned this, and even if they've never seen a device before, they seem to be able to pick it up and just use it immediately, and instantly they've got all their friends connected. And people from another generation, they're not necessarily technophobes, but they've never had the reason to learn all of that technology. And there's a very daunting prospect of trying to get to grips with something. I know I myself have been on an incredibly steep learning curve ever since the pandemic. And, I knew enough technology to get by with what I needed to do, but then I had to learn all these new things. Skype, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. I had to become proficient with those, get up and running. I'm not an expert on anything by any stretch of the imagination, but I know just enough to keep going. And it's a big question of how to bridge that gap. And there is in the chat here, we've got suggestions of getting the children to teach their parents and club members, which of course is the easiest route probably, because the children will do that. There are barriers there because a lot of older people don't think they want to learn things from younger people. And I've been teaching in schools 33 years now, and I've said from the start that learning is always a 2-way process. And I'm just as interested in what the children have got to teach me than I am trying to teach the children. I learn so much more from the children than I ever did when I was at school myself, when I was a bit too blink of the chest, perhaps. I mean, are there any other ideas apart from getting children to teach their parents to demystify the whole process of technology? Any of the panelists, have you any ideas how to bridge that gap and make the technology a little bit more accessible to the senior members of the club?
I mean, one suggestion I would make quickly on this, and I think this is perhaps a group effort. So this is something where I think we need to figure out how we can do this across the board. But maybe just having videos. Well, sorry, let me take a step back. To consider that people learn in different ways, and one mechanism for teaching is not going to be the right fit for everybody. And I think there's something around, do we need to think about doing a common set of documentation for those who like to read and absorb their information like that, common set of videos for those who like to absorb and learn from that. Do we do a quick start guide for people who are very much of the just let me hack around and figure out my way forward? And I think there's something around that. I think that would be, I think that kind of thing helps, because whilst absolutely there's a lot to be learnt from younger people, absolutely, you know, learn from your kids, they're going to know that stuff well. Sometimes I think it's useful to have that backup, more formal stuff available as a backup, so that you can you get the download from your kids, and then you can sort of have your 15 minutes or, you know, couple of days to sort of let it digest and sort of ferment a bit, and then you go back to the formal thing, and that sort of helps sort of entrench that knowledge, and it's not complete, it's not foreign language now when you are retracing those steps.
That's very good, thank you. And then on the contrary side of things, we have some children don't like playing online, says Stephanie. Her son doesn't like playing online because he cannot see the opponent crumble. So, which is quite a Bobby Fischer kind of statement. Bobby Fischer famously liked to see the other fellow's ego crushed completely, and I think that's along the same lines as that. So obviously, Stephanie, you've got a very competitive son there. That's very good to hear indeed. But that is actually a serious point, because I don't like playing online because I can't get the vibes from the opponents, and it made me very aware of how much I was picking up from the opponents across the table in the physical manifestation of themselves. And I find my longer games, I can play the quick games, that's just fun, but anything longer than sort of 10 minutes, and it doesn't feel a fun game, and it doesn't feel a serious game, because it's somewhere in the middle. And I think that is a problem that a lot of chess players will find, that the games don't feel as real when they're online. But having said that, it's very, very early days, of course. It may seem like this year has gone on forever, but in real terms, it's just months. And, you know, from March, certainly in the UK onwards to this point, and we're certainly not out of the woods yet. It could be, well, who knows how long it'll be. I don't want to depress you with my own theories on that one, but it is a long learning process. Even something as simple as playing a game of chess requires lots more learning, and it's not going to be easy. I just noticed John Upham has returned to the room. John, could you post the link, please, into the chat box about the networking cafes, because I can't get it off my phone onto this screen I'm working on now. So it's an important point that there are chess cafes and it's networking available, and anyone can go into those and continue the discussion on anything they want. And Mr. Upham is just about to put the thing in the chat box now, which you might want to make a note of and continue discussion for as long as you like. Feel free to unmute yourselves now, everybody else, and just ask questions if you want to. It'll probably be easier than reading through the chat at this moment. But there's the link from John, so we can certainly do that. Tony says, what about slowly introducing reluctant students to chess-based but easy puzzle solving, such as with solitaire chess? So it's sort of drawing them in a little bit by bit before it's a full game, just small puzzles and things. What do we think about that? Go on, Lou. You're good at explaining things.
Oh, I love it. I love that. I think that's sneak, isn't it? I'm sort of imagining this sort of like gradient of chess puzzles, and you sort of slowly hooking them on and pulling them in. I mean, at least suspecting, you know, you're going to sort of throw opening theory at them whilst they're not paying attention to it. That's really interesting. I guess my question to this is this something, Tony, that you see you're trying to encourage new members to join? Is this something that you are, your definition of student. So is this the student new to chess, or is this the student new to the technologies that are available?
Probably the technologies, I thought, in the context of that comment.
Yes, no, that's interesting. So that's certainly within a lot of IT stuff. There's this idea of gamification, so learning by gamification, and you do the teachings not necessarily by saying, hey, here's this really dry textbook that we want you to sit down and work through, but this idea of gamifying the learning. So this idea of, you know, you're trying to get badges. So if you solve this problem, you get a badge. If you solve this, you get, you know, you get a pleasing sound. You get something where you're trying to hook somebody to go through. And certainly I could see something like that working really well, especially if you're trying to, you know, you get scores for going, right, you've played your first game. And I think chess.com does that, don't they? So every time you play your first blitz game, you get a medal. when you get over a certain rating barrier, you get a medal. So no, absolutely, I can see that being very sort of a very enticing way to sort of draw people in and get them interested.
Unfortunately, Sanjoy, yes.
And very, very briefly to come in on that, there was a session yesterday about the best chess startups, and Andrew Varney and a colleague of his, also called Andrew, whose surname I can't remember, have come
Andrew
up with
Webb. Andrew Webb. Yes.
Yeah, they have this thing called Acorn Chess that they're trying to lift off the ground, which is bringing what are called mini games, which I think anyone that's involved with the Chess in Schools project will be familiar with, onto an online platform. And they are fantastic because you don't have to deal with the entire complexity of chess in one go. It's usually, you know, just a limited set of pieces with a specific objective, not necessarily checkmate. You know, I think many people have played pawns where you just have to get a pawn to the other side. That concept has been around for ages over the board, but Acorn Chess taking that online sounds like a fantastic development. So anyone interested, I'm not sure if there's anything that people can access yet, but keep an eye out for that.
They certainly can access it now, because I was one of the people who were testing it out for them, because we do use that a lot with chess in schools communities. It's an app. It's available to purchase now, in fact, and they have got a session later on today where they'll be demonstrating that again. I know they were on yesterday. In fact, I don't know if Andrew Van is on this call right now, but take a look at the program, and that is definitely something I'm very passionate about. I love the mini games. I've seen them in action for so many years, decades, in fact, and they do work, and they're very well worthwhile pursuing as little short steps to get children involved. Well, not just children, adult players as well. I do lots of training days for adults and teachers who are scared of chess, basically, because they've never had chess. They feel out of their depth. And this is breaking things down to bite-sized chunks all of the time, which is obviously one of the key aspects to teaching anything. And it's one of the reasons why really strong chess players are not always so good at teaching chess, because they find it very hard to come down to that basic step level. I'm getting all sorts of messages pinging here on my phone to tell me to end this meeting now, unfortunately, but there are networking cafes, and I've absolutely loved hosting you today, and we've had so much chat going on in there. We couldn't keep up with all of it, for which we apologise, but it was very vibrant. We've answered as much as we can. And our three guest speakers have been absolutely sensational. I think their material, there was very little overlap. It all complemented the other speakers' material perfectly. It's almost like we'd planned it. But I shall bid you goodbye, and hopefully I'll see you in some of the later sessions. But do network, do reach out. I'm very easy to contact. I'm all over the internet, and other people will be too. So find us on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you want, and we'll continue the discussion for as long as you want. But thank you very much, everybody. A stimulating session, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, guest speakers. Thank you. Bye.